going on? I'm gonna have I guess, it's an interesting topic to me anyway. Tonight it's gonna be, uh, I guess, a tentative title is gonna be family and friends and society when you get arrested. So that's a pretty wide, can be for some people. Maybe they have one friend and that's it. Maybe that one friend's a bottle or whatever it may be, but maybe they have a lot of friends and they're connected and they're social and popular. Maybe they're not, but at any rate, when when someone's arrested, they have um, a lot of effects that they may or may not think about, and it affects a lot of people when one person is arrested. So that person that's arrested may be the breadwinner. So there's obvious financial, emotional situations with that person going to jail, whether it's legitimate or not. But just the fact that they're in jail is going to have an effect on a bunch of other people, family, children, wives, spouses, whatever. Um, but I want to talk, and I've kind of already decided, I guess, I'm going to make this a two-part video. And I'm going to have maybe some special guests. And one of those people, I've asked my mom to do it. um, she is, she lives in I would call it like a senior housing type building. It's not like an assisted living or nursing home or anything, but she lives there in an apartment with my grandma and my mom's husband. Um, and they're taking the pandemic very seriously, as they should. And it is real, certainly, but um, they're high risk and they're very scared to get out. So I'm gonna have to think about how to do that, and I'll I guess figure it out in the next video, the part two to this one. But in this one, I'm gonna talk about, I guess, my experiences as it relates to how my arrest affected my family and friends and society as a whole. Um, I'm not saying that someone in Turkmenistan heard about what happened. Maybe they did, because the world's smaller than you think nowadays. But certainly, it affected people here in the area where I live at still. It also affected people I worked with, and that's what I'm going to talk about tonight. So, um, my family, obviously, I have a mom that's thankfully alive and still in the picture. My dad, not so much. Don't really care or know too much about him. I found more about him since I've been released from prison than I ever knew before I was ever arrested. So strange how that worked out, but um, it my the events with Ashley affected my family, because they overall, there were some people that had some different issues with Ashley and with I guess with us, as parents, or whatever. Wasn't anything really major, but at least from my side of the family anyway, with regard to her side, it was a little bit different, obviously. But um, some people were in disbelief. My one sister, remember a letter that I got in prison that talked about, I know you didn't do this. And I was talking to someone about this tonight. Um, responsibility is a topic that I've done a video on. I think it's very relevant. I think a lot of people that are in prison are in a state of denial, typically. I'm not saying that everyone that's in prison is in denial, but I think a large part of people, because of different things, whether it's substance abuse, whether it's mental disorders, or just continued criminality, they can't take responsibility for their actions, and so they're in denial. It's someone else's fault. They're blaming someone else, and thankfully, for lots of reasons, I haven't done that. I've not taken pride in what I've done. I'm by no means prideful of causing the amount of hurt and pain that I've caused, but I do take ownership of what I did. I did what I did. I'm not proud of it, but playing taboo, or being ignorant about it, or not talking about it, isn't going to fix anything. And so that's, you have to get real with yourself before you can kind of make any real improvements, in your own life. So that's one situation where I had to correct, a misstatement, I guess. And it was maybe in denial in that sense, but it was also, my sister didn't want to believe that I had done this thing that was being portrayed. by the media, the gems that they are. So this obviously affected my mom. I've got three sisters that are all younger than me. It affected them. My youngest sister, we haven't really talked about it because me and my sisters are somewhat disjointed. We love each other. We all live in the same city. I don't see them very often, and that's something I need to work on. I'll say that, but I'm not. They know where I'm at. I know where they're at, but we just don't. We don't run in each other's circles and mesh and whatnot. I'll get a strange, a text message from one of them here and there, and that's about it. We'll see them at different things, but we don't hang out or anything like that. But it affected them. I'm their brother, and so I wasn't here obviously with them for that period of time that I was in prison. I wasn't here with them. I was in prison, but my mom, it affected her. I'm sure. I know it did, and I didn't really. I wasn't really confronted with how it affected her. She was at the court hearings that happened, the motions and hearings and arraignments and all those kinds of things, to show support. But wasn't really a situation where we could talk very much. I was in custody and in handcuffs and couldn't really go back there and talk to her. She would come to visit me at the jail and in prison when she could. And that was more than I can say for some people. There's some people that I was incarcerated with that never had a visit, and they had no expectation of ever having a visit other than maybe a new charge or something like that. But they didn't really have visits. They didn't have family. So I was very aware of that and very cognizant of that some people had worse family situations than I did, and was fortunate to have those visits in prison. They did make a difference. I was released in June of 2015. For a month, I went to a really crappy facility in Newport, Kentucky, and then things got straightened out. That I had started paperwork and everything before I was released. I started that actually in February as a result of my mom sending me some paperwork, application for a certain facility here in Louisville, and I was accepted to that. It was an issue with probation and parole not inspecting the place, I think. And there was also a pretty groundless other court action not related to anything else that was dismissed. I think that may have held things up for me coming to Louisville. So on the 26th of June, I came here to Louisville and was able to be, the facility that I went to, my mom's apartment is about 50 feet apart. So they're not very far at all. And that was part of the reason that she wanted me to come here and why I sent the application to the place in. I'll try to do a video about New Legacy here in the coming weeks. But at any rate, there was a meeting that was held at New Legacy, and it was a support group for people that had relatives in prison, sons and daughters and other relatives and that kind of thing, mostly children. But there I was able to see twinges of how my arrest and the things that happened affected my mom, and it broke my heart, honestly, to see her cry when she was talking about me getting arrested and how that affected her. So my grandma, she's getting up in years, we'll say. She's still alive, thankfully, but she had just after I got arrested, she had just retired from nursing. She'd been a nurse for about 30 years in nursing homes, one particularly for a long period of time. And her health got to the point where it wasn't really conducive, and there were some other issues. She was the reason that I had the attorney that I had, and had I not had that individual as an attorney, I really believe that I would have had a lot worse of an outcome as far as time in prison or the way things worked out. So I'm forever thankful to her and forever thankful to that attorney. Me and him still talk occasionally, and I've told him in no certain words that I'm thankful for him saving my life, and I feel like that's what he did. And my arrest obviously affected my daughter and Ashley's family. So I'm not really going to get into that because I wasn't there. I know that it's to say that they don't like me is an understatement, and I can understand that. But I'm not going to, belabor those issues that relate to her family and how you would, think someone in that situation would feel about the other person. So, at the time that I was arrested, I did have a girlfriend at the time, and that arrest obviously affected that relationship. I was after everything happened, Ashley died. I wasn't really in the best frame of mind, and like I said, I decided to try to. I wasn't dating to find a new girlfriend. That wasn't what I was doing at all. I was lonely, and acted out of loneliness, and our daughter was used to having a woman around, and I guess in some way I was trying to replace that, or trying to keep some sense of normalcy in that sense for her. Um, and there was always someone around in that kind of role, and not that any of those other women that I was with filled that. They didn't, they couldn't. And I let some of them know that. I wasn't apologetic in that sense. I had, coworkers that I worked with that, I was an EMT for a number of years, the 3 years before I was arrested, certainly, but it it affected them, and I know that it did. People that I worked with that had a good relationship, we had a good relationship together, and people that I worked with that didn't have a good relationship. People that there was one individual that was made part of the discovery in the situation, and she lied to the police. That's not illegal, but she lied to the police and said some things that weren't true, and that kind of dragged my name through the mud because people do that when you're not around. I did have a lot of people that said things against me, and I don't particularly hate them. I don't really think about it too often, honestly, because I've slept since then. But I do know that it happened. It's in black and white. I'm not going to hunt those people down and give them noogies or anything like that. It's not. It's in the past, honestly. They did what they did for the reasons they did it at the time they did it. So whether it was selfish, whether it was to jab at me because they didn't like me, whether it was because they were jealous, whatever it may have been, they did what they did, and it's over. But I found out. I talked in the last video about if you want to find out who your friends are, get yourself a jail sentence, and that's what happened. I found out that there are people that I worked with that were fake, and you can learn some lessons from that in life. And I also found out there's some people that are profoundly loyal and profoundly genuine and sincere in what they're saying, and they will bend over backwards literally to help you in your time of need. And I've seen that, and so I try to emulate that and project that forward onto other people and in other situations because of that. Also, it's the right thing to do and gives you warm and fuzzies and all that good stuff. The police, I talked about this when I was arrested. The police treated me a certain way, and that's their job. They're going to treat every criminal defendant or suspect or whatever have you, a certain way. They're not going to be your friends. They're not your friends. And in fact, show my sweatshirt that I have today. It is the case citation from Miranda versus Arizona, and it says held STFU, which means be quiet. The police's job is to investigate a crime, whatever that may be, and they're allowed for different reasons to lie to you, to mislead you, to say different things, and they do that, and they have a job to do. And as long as you understand that it's not typically not personal, then you'll be a lot better off. But I was taught through growing up not to dislike the police, not to disrespect the police, and to understand they have a job to do and to help them whenever that comes to be needed. But they obviously treated me as a suspect, as an inmate, as a detainee, whatever have you, and that affected how I look at situations. That also applies to like probation and parole officers and corrections officers, because to each set of individuals, whether it was police or corrections or probation and parole, they looked at me in a different light, I guess. There's certain things you can do in prison that you can't do out here, and the other way around. But I think because I was in public safety before I was arrested, inmates looked at me a certain way. I can't say I've ever been to a prison as an EMT, but I did go to the jail, and I did go to the homicide office to got called to a run there. And so, I mean, when you work with police and coroners and firefighters and that kind of stuff, you have relationships with them. Maybe not drinking buddies, but I mean, you know of them, you know who they are. You may see them in a store or something. They see you, you say hi, whatever. Their view of me obviously was changed in that sense, because I wasn't the EMT in the ambulance anymore. I was the suspect or the detainee or whatever. There was, a situation that I remember very clearly. I was in Todd County. I was being housed there in the jail down there in Southern Kentucky, and I had an appointment in Hopkinsville. And so I'm wearing the jumpsuit of the jail. It was like a greenish type color at the time, and I had handcuffs on and shackles. That was their protocol, and that's how they transported you. So I get out of the vehicle to go into the appointment, and there's a minivan parked right there by the entrance as you go up the ramp at this building. And there was a little girl and her mom were sitting there, standing there, waiting to get into the van. I guess they were getting something out or getting something in. The little girl looked at me and just, I don't know what she saw, but the mother saw me and saw the deputy sheriff that was escorting me in, and kind of pulled her back and held her. And, that really had an effect on me. I feel like the mother did that out of protection for a child, and I can understand that. But that was, I guess, for the first time that it was a child, and it was a member of the public, and I feel like they were scared of me, and I didn't like that. So that had a lasting effect in my memory and my mind. There was a period of time between I took the plea bargain, the time that I was sentenced to the 12 years that I was sentenced to, and the case was in the media, it was in the news locally, and I'd gotten out of jail, and I had to go the next day to the probation and parole officer to do some different paperwork and those kinds of things, and I set up an appointment to come back to do some things the court required me to do for the pre-sentence investigation. I remember going down there and a woman seeing me, and I felt like she recognized me, and maybe it was my own mind, maybe it was legitimate. I'm not really sure, but I feel like she recognized me, and she kind of darted off, not the other side of the street, but just kind of moved over and whatever. And I was downtown, the central business area of the city. Like I said, the case was in the news. I'm sure she'd possibly just seen it. And I remember taking the hood that I had at the time. It was a gray type sweatshirt and had a really loose kind of a hood on it. And I took it and put it over my face and just wanted to hide my face. And so that's the public, someone I didn't even know, and I couldn't identify this woman to this day, but just the way that her actions, I guess, made me feel I don't know what she thought, but another situation where, I was in that position because of what I did. And so society looks at you a certain way, whether it's justified or not. You're still kind of a runt. You're the outcast. You're the person that's being punished, the person, that all those things. So definitely has an effect that you may not think about when you're doing the things that you're doing, is the point of that. There are some people, I'm not going to name them because that's not really appropriate to do, to name people without their permission, for one, but also just kind of to reinforce the thing that I spoke about earlier. There was people that I worked with that reached out and that were legitimately there. And to those people, and I think they know who they are. If they don't, I'll tell them. During that time, there's people that I just talked to one of them a couple days ago, and another one yesterday. So, it doesn't have to be a public safety type job that you're doing to have people like that are friends of yours no matter what. Now, if I burned an orphanage down, I'd like to think those people would probably have disappeared, and I can understand. But the things that happened, the people that knew me knew that the version of events that was being offered for everyone to believe, they knew that wasn't the case, and that wasn't what happened. And they, honestly, those people, a lot of them, they had effects because of that alliance and because of that belief or that support of me. They had effects in their own lives, and that was financial, that was employment related, that was people thinking certain ways about them, and they still, did that and more. And I'm forever grateful to those people. I was on like a house arrest between the time I was the plea bargain and the final sentencing, and so obviously I had access to a computer. The things that were said, not in the local media, and these are other websites or outlets, I guess, were unbelievable. It ranged from copying and pasting articles in the news and represented as their own material to things that were categorically and absolutely false, things that didn't happen, things that weren't said, things that never occurred, and they purported that. And to whoever read those articles, I mean, that's okay, sure, it's on the internet, so it must be true. But I honestly, I wanted to know what people were saying about me. I looked and sought those things out, and that wasn't really healthy to do, but I did it. So some of those articles were very mean and very, they were just wrong. Some of them, the local media, a lot of that was correct, and there were some inaccuracies in that. But people look at the media and they use that and base that, especially now. That was 2009, it's 2020 now. So social media is even more powerful in that sense than even local media. I think newspapers are shutting down every day. News stations are having funding issues, and they're getting dropped from being affiliates of certain networks and all that. So Facebook and Twitter are still alive and running and doing strong. So there's some issues even with them, with the different lawsuits they've had and whatnot. But so I guess in summation, when you're arrested, your friends are going to find out about it. Certainly your friends, your coworkers, people you may be involved with, business associates, if that's a factor. Your employer certainly is going to find out about it. Not in all cases, but if you're found somewhere cross-dressing in a pickup truck, 3:00 in the morning, somewhere you really shouldn't be at, then some places might want to know about that kind of stuff. They might find out, and then you might get embarrassed, and you might get fired and lose your job. So, consequences of an arrest, any arrest, no matter what it may be. I'm not speaking specifically about my situation, but just in general, you're going to have these trickle-down effects that you may not think about when you're doing whatever it may be that you're doing. And you need to think about that before you do it. And hopefully those things that I mentioned will dissuade you from committing crimes, breaking the law, and doing things you shouldn't be doing, in places you shouldn't be doing, and with people you shouldn't be doing with. So if you have any comments or questions, concerns, please leave them down below, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you.